Welcome to Normal Island Live. Tonight is an exciting show because, firstly, the studio has had a makeover. Curtis has been working hard behind the scenes on this new setup, which means we're in person again. What are you checking? If we're still,
There was
if
no
we
I
still
don't
hit.
think there was any audio on the wide shot, but I think we're back now.
Oh, okay, fine. Well, as I was just saying, this is kind of back to being like the OG setup of
Yeah.
Normal Island back in the day, which we thought was maybe 2023. You reckoned it was earlier than that.
Yeah, I mean, if we go to the host, and I think we've got a graphic to show.
Have we got a little picky of when we were on before? Not.
Is our There we go.
Ah, there we go. My God, babies. We look like children.
Yeah, I quite like the way it looks back then, actually.
You've grown your hair out. I don't know. I don't think I've actually changed that much. But anyway, the other exciting thing is that we hit 40K subs
Yes,
just before we went live, which is amazing.
40,000
I
subscribers.
know.
We were so far but so close, or so close but so far, because we were creeping up, and we were. Yeah, it's been a bit slow this year, but 40,000
Yeah, but that's
subscribers
still such a
on the
good
day with
milestone.
like a revamped studio. I'm so excited.
Definitely. So thank you so much to everyone who has joined the gang recently. Remember to like the stream, make sure you're subscribed. And if you want to support us, then you can go to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support to help fund our work. Coming up on tonight's show, Christopher Nolan's latest blockbuster comes under right wing fire. We talk to Tom Chivers about the government's latest social media policy, and Andy Burnham gains a record amount of nominations. Let's go to our first story. Christopher Nolan's latest film, The Odyssey, has faced an online right wing backlash for the crime of having cast a black and a trans actor in it. For anyone unfamiliar, Nolan's latest blockbuster is taken from the ancient Greek poet Homer, whose story, The Odyssey, follows the perilous 10-year journey of Odysseus, traveling back home to Ithaca after the Trojan War. While the official trailer came out 2 months ago, it is the countdown trailer that was released last week that seems to have sparked fresh outrage. The top liked comment under the trailer on YouTube is the face that emptied 1,000 seats with 49,000 likes, as well as others claiming it's the first time they've ever walked out of a trailer. All because the film made the decision to cast Lupita Nyong'o as Helen of Troy. Lupita, who features in the trailer for merely a second, similarly, trans actor Elliot Page being cast as Odysseus. Oh, that's hard to say. Odysseus's cousin has added to the uproar. All for a film that doesn't release until the 17th, might I add, so no one commenting has even seen the film yet. Naturally, many took to Twitter to voice their negativity, one voice being none other than Elon Musk himself. Chris Nolan desecrated Homer and groveled on his knees just to meet the woke rules required to win an Oscar. What a worm. There's also this from Homer Pavlos. Odyssey is part of our Greek culture and history. We have every right to be offended. You disrespect Homer and race swap figures important to our culture, a culture that built Western civilization. Nolan, Lupita, and their low IQ defenders are the actual racists towards us Greeks. What I personally found most offensive in the trailer was hearing Tom Holland and Rob Pattinson's. Well, they do have good American accents, but just the fact that there were so many American accents in it anyway just didn't quite sit right with me. But alas, no mention of the Americanization, Hollywood washness of the adaptation. Apparently, it's casting a black woman as Helen of Troy. That's offensive. Never mind the fact this story also features a cyclops, a six-headed sea monster, and mythical gods and goddesses. Right wingers are absolutely jumping for joy at the prospect that the trailer seems to have been heavily ratioed. The Odyssey trailer ratio gets worse, it's over 500,000. YouTube actually removed the public dislike count in late 2021, so only the person who uploaded the video can see the real number of dislikes in YouTube Studio. Because of this, browser extensions like Return YouTube Dislike cannot see the actual dislike count. Instead, they estimate the number of dislikes using data from people who have the extension installed, older dislike data from before YouTube hid the counts, and statistical models to estimate the total number of dislikes. So basically, it's not possible to know the real number. I thought this exchange was interesting. Ravens of Aeneas said the obvious goal of the movie is to rewrite the origins of Western literature to include non Europeans and to exclude European ethnic identity. I really fail to see how any cinematic quality is relevant in that regard. Homer would not have portrayed Helen as Ethiopian. To which Simeon94 replied, ancient Greeks did not consider themselves European or Western, nor did they see themselves as white. Sim is entirely correct. Back in those days, we're talking thousands of years ago, communities and groups didn't refer to people based on skin color, but based on religion. Whiteness is an invention. Whiteness is a social and political idea created in the 17th century to support colonialism, slavery, and racial hierarchies. Before then, people were more often identified by nationality, religion, or ethnicity rather than race. The concept of whiteness united different European groups and gave them social and legal advantages over others. This is a well documented fact, and I'd recommend looking into the works of Theodore W. Allen on this subject. Now, this is what Nolan had to say about the online backlash. Come to the territory, but look, these conversations that happen before people have seen the film, they're always irrelevant because no one having them knows what the film actually is yet. I spent 10 years of my life dealing with Batman. When I came onto the Batman Begins, writers and artists had been working on this beloved character for almost 65 years, and a lot of freighted thoughts were out there that about what he represents. And what I learned over my time on that trilogy is that you can't worry about any of that at all. What you had to do is honor the original text by interpreting it in the strongest way you personally can. Curtis, I know you're a huge Christopher Nolan fan, so what do you make of all of this?
Yes, I am a big fan of Christopher Nolan, and to be honest, like we don't really talk about pop. Well, I don't.
Saying in the chat that there's the sound's gone. So, producer, can you just
Yeah, how's that?
anybody can confirm? I think the guys in the comments are saying that when we change scene,
Oh,
the
to be fair, I don't
sound
know if the
goes.
audio's been added to every single scene, so there should be audio here. There's audio. That will be why. Ooh,
Bear with everyone. I feel like every time we try to do a little bit of an
okay,
update,
I think
something else
there's
goes
audio on here now.
perfect.
Yeah, yeah. It's fine. Do you know what it is? It's not a tech issue because look, there were so many things to sort out in the new studio, but you just had to add our audio to every new scene.
Hmm.
So the camera's on me, but there's no audio added. So there should
So
be
we can blame you then, not the tech. I'm
yes.
joking.
Yes, you can. Yeah, it's working. I better start from the top.
Start again. So you're a Christopher Nolan fan, and we don't usually talk about pop culture, but because this kind of has a conversation in it about wokeness, and obviously there's racism and transphobia and stuff in there as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, why are we talking about
Okay.
this
So
today?
if people didn't hear, It's Elon Musk, who's inserted himself in this, is the biggest loser, the world's biggest loser. And I don't know how someone can have so much wealth and be such a big loser. But everything he says is embarrassing. Of course, if he didn't have that power and wealth, he would be quite literally a nobody. Um, okay, so it's very interesting what people have said here. These aren't just random Twitter users. You've got quite prominent people in this. Um, but Christopher Nolan's work and his artwork, um, yeah, Christopher Nolan's work and his artwork is quite conservative. Like he is conservative. Um, like a small c conservative. Is there? Sorry, I'm just seeing comments now. Everyone kicking off about the audio. Yeah, it sounds
I
absolutely
think it's
fine to
fine.
me. Yeah, sorry. I'll read people's comments and then someone leaves something in there. Um, maybe it's delayed.
Keep going.
Okay. So Christopher Nolan is a conservative, small c conservative. I don't know how he votes. I don't know if he votes conservative or he's in America a lot, votes Republican. But if you look at his artwork, you look at his films, they are often through a conservative lens. Look at The Dark Knight Rises. Now the message of that film does speak about um like wealth inequality. There is a small part of that in there, and that's why there was sort of a failed revolution with. I mean, spoiler alert: Bane sort of does a revolution, if you want, for nefarious reasons. He doesn't care about wealth inequality; he wants to destroy Gotham. But there is that element in that. But it's not like left wing because ultimately Nolan's work and all throughout the Batman trilogy, it is very pro police. Now, it doesn't say that the police are perfect. Again, part of the theme of the Batman films, the Dark Knight trilogy, is that the police can be corrupt, especially the Dark Knight with the Joker. There's many people in the systems who are corrupt, but ultimately, it doesn't really have. I don't think it really says anything about the police at a systemic level. You still have the good cop, as in uh, Detective Gordon. So ultimately, a lot of his films are quite small c conservative. I would say that like what's it, Oppenheimer, his latest film. Maybe that's like center left in its political message because a lot of the film goes into the McCarthyite campaign, which is sort of everyone being smeared as a communist, or if you're a communist, like you could be uh, you know, in a lot of trouble. It does have that aspect, but that's just true. But it doesn't make
But
an
yeah, because
overarching sort of
there's
left wing
obviously
message.
historical context to that film in terms of like the war and the times and that kind of thing. But let's talk about the Odyssey specifically then. Why do you think people are not so much about it? It's a text that was written what, like 3,000 years ago?
So the interesting point, and I'm glad you brought it up, which is the invention of whiteness. I want to talk about this because I think your average person, or most people, would probably think that whiteness or racism is sort of an inherent thing, and the reason why people are racist, it comes from sort of tribes having different, they look different or sound different, and it's like that mistrust between different communities. And as time goes along, we're trying to fix these issues of racism. But as I was studying this and I was looking into this quite a few years ago, is that whiteness was quite literally invented. I think it was the 17th century. It started with a place in, I believe, Georgia, and what happened was, in the American colonies, there was the peasants revolted against the elites in this little town in Jamestown, right? And it was the peasants' revolt was multi-ethnic. Okay, a lot of people were in indentured servitude or slaves, and the peasants revolted against like the landowners and the slave owners. And the response from Jamestown was to realize that actually we need to divide the peasant class. So what they started doing is bringing in racist laws, anti-miscegenation laws, such as a black person can't marry a white woman, and they literally created a division between ethnic groups. Now, it wasn't whiteness wasn't invented in the 17th century. It was more in the 16th century. I forget all the names now, but there was like a voyage that went to Africa, and there was a slave trade going on there. And a writer, a journalist, not a journalist, someone who wrote a journal who accompanied the company, the slave trade and the particular ship, started writing in his journals about whiteness. And they wanted to use it in order to control slaves too. So over the course of like the 16th, 17th century, this idea of whiteness became prominent. Before that, people related to each other and other people through religion. You would identify someone as Christian, not of the color of one's skin. That is how people would identify different groups. And then when it comes to the 16th and 17th century, the invention of whiteness was a very deliberate thing to divide the peasant class. And when you see people say stuff like, well, ancient Greek mythology and a film about, a fictional film, by the way, it's it's whitewashing history. Well, these people don't realize that this time predates the invention of whiteness. Now, of course, in the time of Greek mythology, um, all people are going to be white. In fact, for a long, long time, most Western nations are majority white. In fact, today, right, in a multicultural world with high amounts of immigration because we have the technology for people to, fly, right, that you're going to have more immigration. Majority of people in the West are white. So when people say there's a great replacement theory or white people being replaced, they're not doing a very good job of it. So I find that very interesting. But yeah, no, this film is obviously based on fiction, and there is no whitewashing happening here. It's also worth pointing out, again, which I find so funny, which is that Nolan is somehow like woke, is that if you look at his casting, almost all of his films, they're all white. In fact, I believe the first time he's casted the star of a film was Tenet. Um,
Yeah.
the main character, who his name is literally the protagonist, was black. I don't recall anyone else being black in the lead role. You have obviously Morgan Freeman, who played Michael Fox in Michael Fox or just Fox in the Dark Knight trilogy. But ultimately, like, it's been a very whitewashed cast. And in this film, The Odyssey, again, all of the main characters are white, but because there's a trans person in it and there's a black woman in it playing Helena Troy, oh, suddenly wokeness is everywhere. These people cannot see like the smallest amount of minority representation and they lose their minds, which just shows you that these people are not living in the real world, and they are so pathetic. And frankly, the charge of like us on the left being called snowflakes, right, and fragile, these people are utterly fragile.
That whole thing really winds me up when leftist gets labeled as snowflakes and stuff
Lucius Fox,
because
sorry, someone correct him in the chat.
but yeah, when lefties are sort of labeled as woke snowflakes, you get easily offended at everything. It really, really bugs me because I'm just like, the audacity and the hypocrisy when you're gonna kick off about seeing a black person on
Mm.
your screen. Like they did it with when they did the live action remake of The Little Mermaid, which,
Yeah, yeah.
like,
It's not historically
sorry to
accurate.
break it to you, but mermaids not real. Mermaids
I
aren't
know.
real. And yeah, I
And to be
just
honest,
say you don't want to see a black person on your screen and be done with it.
I mean, to be honest with you, right? I'm not a big fan of like recasting people of color in historically white characters.
Yeah, because that happened with so I can't remember exactly what the adaptation was, but Anne Boleyn was
Anne Boleyn
played
was one,
by
and
a black
I
woman.
think one of the new Doctor Who episodes. Um,
Oh yeah,
I
wasn't Isaac
Isaac
Newton?
Newton, there we
Yeah.
go. Isaac Newton was cast as black. I don't get that. I find that quite problematic. I think it's like that's very like liberal identity politics. Like, oh, maybe it'd be quite a nice thing to do that. It's like, no, actually, the better thing to do is tell more black stories.
Mm.
Because like Hollywood is completely whitewashed, and the liberals, the well-meaning liberals, seem to think, oh, well, if we just cast more black characters, that fixes it. No, it doesn't. Have more black representation through black stories. Otherwise, when you cast a black person as a like a royalty, right? The underlying message here is that there's no such thing as black excellence. They have to be shoehorned into a royal character. There are probably incredibly there are very interesting stories about black people. So I definitely hate it when historically like true figures who are white are casted as a person of color. Now, does that mean I like throw a tantrum though and then kick off? No, I don't. Does that mean I go on the trailer and downvote it? No, I don't. I ultimately care about the writing. I care about the like the filmography. That's the thing that matters to me the most.
The
The
storytelling.
storytelling is the most important thing,
Mm.
and that is probably what's going to come through in Nolan's film. Now, there are genuine critiques of films, and there are genuine critiques of Christopher Nolan. I think his cinematography is second to none. I think his storytelling is absolutely fantastic. That's why I'm such a big Nolan fan. His dialogue writing is kind of atrocious.
I really did not like in that trailer some of the modernization of language and stuff. Like there's
Yeah.
a bit where Tom Holland says something like about his dad, and I'm like, oh, dad? Like, no, that's your father. Like this,
Yeah.
this is.
My father. Why is it saying dad?
I
You know,
don't.
it's
Yeah,
it's
but then and
weird.
then like Rob Pattinson says something about like, what did he say? You're pining for a daddy that you didn't even know,
Mm,
and I'm just like, no, I don't like
yeah.
that.
But this is the problem with Nolan is that a lot of his dialogue in films aren't very good, and does too much exposition where a character just explains something on camera to you. But again, that is a sideshow compared to his like incredible filmmaking. So I think it's a major cope from these people that they're trying to say that this guy is woke, he's now a bad director. The guy is just made banger after banger after banger. Now, I don't personally think that Oppenheimer was his best film, but I think that a lot of people, maybe most people, would regard Oppenheimer as his best film. Just when you think this guy surely ran out of ideas, he keeps making something new. And I'm sure this film will be fantastic.
This
I'm going to go see it.
I was just going to ask you, are you going to go see it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, of course I will.
Fine. Well, let's leave that there and we'll move on to our next story. Lisa Nandy and Lucy Powell have spoken out against Twitter, with Nandy removing herself and her entire department off the social media platform. I've decided to leave this platform and my department will too. A platform originally designed for free speech and expression now favours abuse and misinformation over meaningful debate. It isn't healthy for our democracy or our communities, and I don't want to support it. Meanwhile, Powell attacked the website as toxic.
We saw Lisa Nandy say this week on X that she's going to come off X this week because she thinks it's become a far-right misinformation network under Elon Musk. I know you've got some proposals and ideas about how social media needs to change as well, but just on that, on X, do you think there's a government, do you think that there is a case that the wider government should do the same and withdraw?
Well, look, they're decisions for Lisa and her department, and I think look, these are trade-offs, aren't they? You know, it's a place that people do go to hear about what you're doing or to get news. So, do you want to remain on that platform? But it is also, you know, a platform that increasingly I find to be quite a toxic and difficult environment. But look, more importantly, we absolutely need to strengthen regulation in the social media space. I've got some proposals for doing that, especially when it comes to election time, where as a broadcaster, Lewis, how much you are restricted and regulated during election periods, who you can have on your show, how you have to be impartial, how you have to share information and facts about different people standing for election and so on. And now the social media space, which is where most people get their news and information and are influenced from, is out with that completely. And I think it's not beyond the wit of man. We've got an elections bill going through the House of Commons at the moment to strengthen that bill so that social media comes under some of the same requirements during an election period as our broadcasters do.
But instead of actually doing something about social media platforms, leaving or calling Musk toxic just doesn't cut it. But speaking of media platforms, YouTube recently sent a notification to creators warning about proposed government legislation. UK government is running a public consultation called Watch This Space, a new strategic direction for UK media. The proposals include mandatory changes to how content is discovered on YouTube. This could direct audiences away from your channel. As a UK creator, this directly impacts your future. Digital content discovery works best when driven by user choice, not legal requirements. This is a vital window for you to share your perspective before the consultation closes on 31st of August 2026. The proposed new rules include a mandatory prominence regime. This could require digital platforms like YouTube to prioritize and give a privileged position to traditional broadcasters like the BBC, ITV, and Channel 4 in user interfaces, and recommendation fees, potentially pushing your content out of sight. Mandating prominence to traditional institutions will impact all other independent digital creators, production companies, and media co's, including through your content downranked. Pushing this group forward means pushing everyone else downward. Mandatory prioritization of broadcasters would affect how your content reaches your audience, regardless of what your audience actually wants to see. Reducing user exposure to diverse content and independent creators. Mandating prominence for established media networks would push the UK's diverse mix of independent journalists, educators, and digital-first businesses down the line. Threat to reach and channel growth. Your ability to organically grow your community, generate views and revenue, and build a sustainable business is compromised if your content is hard to be discovered. Undermining the creator-audience bond. The consultation repeatedly emphasizes trust in the context of legacy broadcasters, implying that digital-first voices are less credible, damaging the foundational trust that sustains the creator economy. So does this mean that government censorship, I can't say that word, on Google platforms is imminent? We caught up with Media Reform Coalition's Dr. Tom Chivers. Just to start off, what do you make of Lisa Nandy and her department leaving Twitter?
I think it's totally reasonable for people to choose to leave these platforms in protest against widespread abuse, hatred, disinformation that Twitter and its owner Elon Musk actively promote. I think for most people, we're not talking here about getting upset about different opinions or people getting ratioed for saying stupid things and then calling that harassment. I think the reality is that many people, especially women, Muslims, trans people, minority communities, they're openly targeted and harmed by rampant abuse and almost industrialized misinformation online, which all has the effect of shutting people out of taking part in these digital spaces. What's more, everybody suffers from how these platforms demean society and public discourse. So leaving these spaces is basically the only thing that most individuals can do to challenge big tech. My problem here is Lisa Nandy is quite literally one of only a tiny handful of people who has real power to do something serious about these problems and to do something that can benefit everybody. When she says she's leaving Twitter in protest, what is she now going to do about these problems? The people who are harmed most as a result of the abuse of misinformation online are still going to be harmed, whether or not she's there. And sadly, public figures, women, minority groups will still be subject to appalling abuse whether or not they are on these platforms personally. So really my question is Lisa Nandy going to follow up and act, ideally to transform these broken online spaces into meaningfully public democratic spaces, or is her leaving Twitter simply a case of wiping her hands of the problem?
What are your thoughts about YouTube's message to creators? They are claiming that we could potentially reach less people than legacy media if the government brings in their proposals.
I think YouTube's message is a masterclass in corporate lobbying, and it's typical of how big tech platforms have, really for the last 20 years, resisted any kind of public accountability or regulation by democratic bodies. And we have to keep in mind how companies like Google and Meta and the others operate. They monetize content made by individuals or professional creators. They keep a vast majority of the revenue for themselves. And then they put together a kind of perverse system of audience algorithms, content recommendations, bad incentives for creators that give the platform power to choose what kind of content makes money or gets seen by audiences. And it's certainly not independent journalists or left media that's ever been on the winning side of this system. What then happens is, as soon as regulators or parliaments try to deal with these massive monopolies and these deeply uneven markets, the giant big tech corporations try to turn their users and their content creators into pawns for their lobbying strategies. After taking the profit from your work, making you jump through hoops to get monetized, putting you under permanent threat of demonetization for the slightest slip up, Big tech turns around and says, don't let mean, nasty government ruin the perfect online paradise that we've created. I think it's completely cynical. It's transparent, old-fashioned corporate lobbying. I think what matters for independent media and for left media, those who are trying to build accountable and democratic media, I think we have to be really careful here to not fall into the trap of having to side either with big tech or with self-serving governments. We actually need a collective response to how we can build a system that works for us and doesn't simply give power over to government or to big tech.
How much do Google and other social media platforms censor content?
Well, censorship is commonplace on all the major tech platforms, though for the most part, it's not the kind of heavy-handed, iron fist censorship that we traditionally think of. Big tech censorship is systematic, but it's much less visible or obvious. I think in most cases, really, it could be described as commercial censorship. If your content doesn't attract big audiences for Google to sell to advertisers, then YouTube isn't going to prioritize making your content visible or obvious or discoverable to audiences. So then creators who want to earn a living on these platforms are forced to either earn less, or they have to effectively self-censor or modify their content to match the platform's often very opaque and unpredictable standards for what makes popular content, including the topics or views that they cover. There is also much more direct and overt political censorship on these platforms. We know, for instance, that YouTube, TikTok, Twitter have all suppressed videos and posts by Palestinians and pro-Palestinian groups. We know how evidence or reporting of the genocide in Gaza is flagged or removed for content violations that are never applied in the same way to reporting on Ukraine or other conflicts. We know that Facebook has cooperated directly with authoritarian governments around the world to uphold blasphemy laws or to undermine free speech online. And of course, Meta's recent change to its hateful conduct standards, which gave a green light to anti-LGBT posts and harassment on Facebook, all done to, well, quite openly, to appease the Trump administration. I certainly don't want any government applying direct censorship to determine what we can post or find or say online. But the claim that Google and these big tech platforms, the claim they're making that these online spaces are some kind of utopia where all kinds of views or kinds of content are free and equal, it's completely garbage. Platform censorship is commonplace.
Whilst you seemingly have a big fight between government and big tech, we know that big tech are censorious. They are not the bastion of free speech, yet the government could elevate organisations such as the Daily Mail or the Telegraph, not just public broadcasters such as the BBC. That's a potential major problem, right?
I think it's a huge problem, and what it shows is the deeper political and economic power struggles that are shaping what kind of media system we have in the United Kingdom. This new policy proposal about online prominence shows that the government is starting to discover a will to take on the power of big tech, but at the same time, it's still completely captured by the power of the established, traditional, elite media institutions like the corporate press and the big broadcasters. I think we should be forcing big tech companies to take on public responsibilities. They have a hugely powerful, almost total control over the online media landscape. They make obscene amounts of money off of our attention and our data, but they aren't held to any meaningful standards or required to give anything back to the public. The least we should expect of these online platforms is that they make trustworthy, high quality, independently regulated journalism accessible and visible to the public online for the public's benefit. But as you say, the government seems to think that if we're after trustworthy, high quality news, then we should look no further than the Daily Mail or the Sun or the Telegraph. Newspapers that aren't regulated to any kinds of standards, that are owned by unaccountable billionaires, and which pump out disinformation and abuse every single day, just like the tech platforms the government wants to regulate. I think the essential principle in this debate has to be no public benefits without public responsibilities. The government should not be doling out major requirements for any kind of media organisation unless that media organisation has clear public responsibilities. The best independent media, the best local media, the best investigative public interest journalism we have in this country has all made clear commitments to public responsibilities, whether that's high content standards, whether they're publicly owned, whether they're independent cooperatives, independently regulated. That's the kind of trustworthy news we should be requiring the big tech platforms to promote and host. But it really takes a collective action from the independent media sector to tell the government, ignore the press barons, ignore the big tech billionaires. If you want to build a better media, this is the media system and this is the independent sector which is ready and waiting for your support.
Curtis, what are your thoughts about the recent intervention from YouTube and the proposed legislation?
Yeah, so of course, like we saw the notification from YouTube. And like at first it sounded quite alarming, and it could be, because there's so many questions about this green paper. Ultimately, I think the first draft of the green paper was basically like, oh, hey, you, Mr. Big Tech, do the right thing. And it was like, well, you can't ask the big tech to voluntarily be good. And now they're looking at ways of putting prominent media above other people. Now, the big issue potentially of this piece of legislation is that they could be putting like I'm not actually that bothered about like the BBC getting some kind of prominency. Of course, we all have our criticisms of the BBC. What I'm worried about though is they might look at like the Sun and the Daily Mail, and that's just corporate media. But because they have accreditation, then that might be boosted towards us, for example. That worries me. I do think there's a far more nuanced discussion about this, though. The right wing have basically said this is mass censorship from the government. You should be really, really worried. But as Tom Chivers was pointing out, and as we all know, Google, and especially YouTube, is highly censorious because they control the algorithms. Like, look at Twitter, for example. Elon Musk now owns Twitter. Has the algorithm stayed the same under his ownership? No, it hasn't. It's changed, right? And he's made Twitter into his own fascist, disgusting far-right hellhole. So you can have one unaccountable, well, I say billionaire, but trillionaire for what, a day or two? Unaccountable billionaire, trillionaire to basically rig the media, and that's a big problem. So I do think that social media needs to be regulated. And again, the right wing will cry at that. They'll say you just want big government and censorship. But when it comes to the media, let's not talk about social media for example, but broadcast media, print media, there's already regulation. We have Ofcom. Now, Ofcom is pathetic. I mean, if Ofcom did their job properly, GB News would not be on there, right? It's crazy that they've not been taken off because they just push misinformation, right? But it's a good thing that there is regulation. Like the amount of times where like the Sun newspaper does like a front page lie about someone, and they're forced to retract. Now, again, there should be stronger rules because the Sun will put out a lie, knowing that it's a lie, and then they'll do like a retraction on like page 7 in small writing as an apology. They know most people aren't going to see that. That's a problem. But I'm glad that corporate media is held to a certain standard. It just needs to be improved. It seems strange to me that we don't do the same for social media, because would anyone argue that owners of GB News, owners of the Sun, the Daily Mail, the Telegraph, that they get to pump out anything they want unrestricted? No. I mean, they could, and they have, put people's lives in danger when it comes to saying a story about an ordinary working class person. They could say, this person is the murderer. Could be complete lies. And that could destroy someone's life, because often the lie is the thing that spreads, right? The truth doesn't catch up. So, of course, we have regulations, but it seems wild to me that we don't have it for social media. Like, ultimately, corporate media is also social media. Like, I think for a while, a lot of people were excited about social media. We thought it was going to change the landscape. We thought it was going to give people power. We thought it was going to democratize the means of communication. And the internet, at least for a while, was kind of like that. But what's happened? It's just turned into corporate media version 2. And in a worrying way, the so-called new media or right-wing media, which is owned by the billionaire class and like people like Elon Musk, they're saying they're new independent media and they're taking on legacy media. But it's like, ultimately, there is no difference between someone like Elon Musk and the Telegraph. I would say, obviously, there is a diversion of extremities, of course, right? But ultimately, our mainstream media push a very simple message, which is propaganda on behalf of the financial and economic elite, okay? That hasn't changed on social media. So I think that's really important to understand. So if we don't have any kind of regulation to say, well, hold on, Google can just censor you, then that is a big problem. And I don't see social media obviously improving in any kind of way. Because ultimately it's about the concentration of power. Now, the right wing, they view, and this is like what libertarians do as well, they think that authoritarianism and censorship can only come from the government. When the state does something, oh, it's bad. But have they not thought about like where power resides? Okay, power doesn't just reside from the state; it resides in the private market, i.e., it resides with corporations. The difference is, right? Some billionaire or trillionaire can own the means of communication, put out their propaganda, and it's not accountable whatsoever. At least like the BBC, and it has their problems. And we've spoken to like Tom Chivers, we've spoken to many other people who want to reform and democratize the BBC, but at least there is some kind of accountability. So what we're saying is, if we don't regulate corporate media and social media, oh, we should just have the BBC and remove any kind of democratic accountability. So there has to be that. And I'm interested in power and where it resides. Okay, power, transcends state. But again, people on the right seem to think that if the government imposes something, that's authoritarian. But they're happy to be little cucks for the billionaire class and the corporations. Like, no, 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 no. Like the issue is corporate power, whether it's exercised through the states or whether it's exercised through private media organizations such as social media. So I do want to see regulation on YouTube because I think we have a big problem with misinformation. There's a huge problem with misinformation, actually. No one knows the truth anymore because ultimately those who've got the money and the power can just pump out slop, right? So if I don't see a problem with the government saying, look, we're going to bolster regulated organizations. Like we're looking at being regulated by Impress. We're not yet, but that's something we're looking towards, right? And I don't think there's anything wrong. I mean, look, I watched Aaron and Michael Navarro, and I basically had the same opinions as them, really. I found myself agreeing with both of them, which is that, I think actually more Michael this time, though, that, like, more and more people should be regulated. We're going to get into a position, when we get into a position where we can, we would like to be regulated, and that we're bolstered over some idiot who calls himself a citizen journalist, and they're just harassing people in the street, and they call it journalism. A lot of the far right content that goes out there, like why is young Bob, who's actually favored in the algorithm, over us when we write scripts, we do our research, and we put together a proper show? Young Bob can just go out and say whatever he wants, and because he's ideologically aligned with Elon Musk, well, Elon Musk is gonna boost him. So that is so anti-democratic. So don't worry about state censorship, which we all oppose, right? And again, I have worries about this legislation, but no one seems to kick up a fuss about corporate censorship.
I think, yeah, I do agree that there definitely needs to be some more kind of regulation with social media. In particular, more and more people are turning to social media to find out about different news stories and stuff. I don't really know that many people, even my parents, I don't think they physically like read a newspaper anymore. And yeah, sure, they might go on certain newspapers apps and things like that. But I think more and more people are just following different creators online that they resonate with and they like what they say and things like that. But agreed, that's just going to really cause more issues around misinformation
Yeah.
and the spreading of misinformation, because things really do spread like wildfire on social media. I think because it's so instant and it's at the tips of our fingertips
Well,
constantly.
anyone can put out a lie.
Yeah.
When it comes to like the mainstream media, when it comes to like writing for a publication, you have to fact check. You have to run it through editors. There's a process, right, where you can't just willingly lie. Social media, you don't have to do that. Now, I'm not saying that everyone has to go through a rigorous process of like sending a tweet, but I do think that like someone who is notorious, known for lying, that maybe they should be capped on the algorithm.
It's really interesting though because, for example, I follow this girl called Grace Beverly. She's the founder of sports brand Tala, as well as lots of other things that she's done. And she has millions of followers on Instagram. And every now and again, she's got a podcast. I think, I can't remember what it's called. But anyway, she's got a podcast. She interviews lots of different business people. She's very left leaning, actually, even though she's in this quite like privileged position. But the other day she put a reel on talking about how dangerous reform and restore are. I think it was restore particularly, and obviously the right wing caught onto it. She's got quite a lot of nasty comments and stuff on it. And she's obviously chosen to make that piece of content. She's chosen to inform herself, educate herself, etc., so she can put this bit of content out. And then somebody commented like, "Oh, I don't see you commenting about the grooming gang report." And although obviously a lot of us can say that report was bogus,
It was fabricated numbers in it.
100%, and that's obviously why she's not spoken out about it. But there is this kind of weird thing that happens on social media when particularly with influencers, I would say, but when influencers maybe chop and choose what they want to talk about, or I mean, nobody owes anyone anything at the end of the day. It's their channel, they can talk about what they want. But if they're not political, but they do, as in they're not a politics centered page like Grace is, but they do occasionally comment on it, there's this like expectation that you then should
You now have
comment
to
on
speak about
everything.
everything. Yeah, yeah. And
Exactly.
people don't have the time or
No.
capacity to do that. I mean, you always kind of get that a little bit, but like you actually like. I just sort of thought of something now as you were speaking about how Rupert Lowe just went on the Joe Rogan podcast. The Joe Rogan podcast has millions of views. It is massive, and it is pure misinformation slop. Like, Joe Rogan is a fucking imbecile. And in fact, there was I think in the 90s in Scotland, Dunblane, there was a mass shooting that happened. 16 children were killed. One teacher was killed. And Rupert Lowe, he was basically saying how it's terrible that my gun and my father's gun was taken off me after one murder. And he referenced Dunblane. And Joe Rogan was like, one murder? And he's like, yeah, just one murder. And he didn't go, hey, pull up the information. He didn't. Obviously, it's fucking bullshit. 16 children were killed. And like, Joe Rogan never fact checks, but he gets some people all the time. They just push their right wing slop. He rarely checks. That doesn't matter.
And the thing is, somebody could hear that, obviously, take that in, hear that as gospel, as the correct information, blah, blah, blah. They'll then go and spread that to somebody else. And even if the next podcast episode, he'd issued a apology or a correction or whatever, what if that person doesn't listen to that next episode? Then they just believe that bit of false information.
It's kind of the same as newspapers. They might see the front page, might not buy it, but they're not going to buy it to see like page 7. So that's what's so dangerous about social media now, and the lack of democratization of the media just means that the oligarchs own it.
Let's leave it there, and we'll move on to our final story. But before we do, it's 2026, and we really want this year to be big for Turn Left. We want to be more ambitious than last year and to really put us on the map. We would like 2026 to be the year that we can have a full-time studio, although we have had a little upgrade, and for our contributors to be paid for the work that we do. Your support over the years has been amazing, and we are ready to take this to the next level. We rely on small donations, so if you want to be part of a media organisation that seeks to destroy the oligarchs, then please head over to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There you can support us monthly on Patreon, or there is another link for a one-time contribution. You can also become a YouTube member for 99p. Thank you. So our final story, Andy Burnham has secured the backing of 322 Labour MPs, one away from an official coronation. If he were to add another MP to his nomination list, Burnham would be crowned Prime Minister on the 20th of July. So far, no other MP has been nominated and no one has announced they will be challenging him. Burnham said this on Twitter. As the first day of nominations draws to a close, I'm deeply grateful to the 322 Labour MPs who have put their trust in me and nominated me for leader of the Labour Party. Their support comes from across the PLP and reflects a shared belief that Britain needs a new approach to politics. That is the circuit breaker I am offering: power out of Westminster, an economy rewired for ordinary people, and good growth in every postcode. I want to empower MPs to bring the experiences of their constituents into the heart of government and harness the full breadth of our Labour movement, drawing on all its traditions and beliefs in pursuit of a common purpose. I want to thank every colleague who has nominated me for their commitment to that vision. Curtis, I think this is a very clear statement from Labour MPs here. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's basically it's one MP off a coronation. And the reason why is because I think you have to have 81 or 81 MPs to be nominated to get on the ballot. If he gets 323, then no one else can be nominated. But none of us are surprised, are there? I mean, Andy Burnham we all expected this to happen, right? So I don't think anyone is particularly surprised. I understand like the arguments when people say like this is an undemocratic move because obviously he won in Makerfield. Everyone knew it was Keir Starmer's replacement, and he was going to be shoehorned into the next general election. A lot of political opponents are saying that a general election should be called. Now, I will say, and I'm not saying that this is like I'm on one side or the other, but it is important to understand that we have a parliamentary system. We do vote for party. We don't vote a president in. So I can actually see the argument as to not call a general election because ultimately, I know specifically in Makerfield, it was a highly individualized campaign, all about Andy Burnham. Me and Callum went to Makerfield and we saw almost zero Labour literature. Actually, I didn't see a single Labour logo. It was all about Andy Burnham, right? Because Labour are unpopular, Andy Burnham's more popular. I understand that. But generally, it's about the party. I mean, I would actually posit the idea that most people don't know their MP, the name of their MP. They just go to the ballot box and they look at the logo, so well, I'm voting Conservative, I'm voting Reform. So I do find it strange that in a system where people vote for party, not really for person, that there's a lot of hoo-ha about why there should be a general election or why this is so bad. I mean, I find it ironic as well. Reform have been those have sort of spoken out against this the most. But as Michael Crick, he did on LBC, he did a great job. He basically absolutely slaughtered Richard Tice, and other people could too. Which is that the new Reform MPs who defected from the Tories, where's their by-election? Because I think switching party is a bigger offence than changing the MP of the same party. Now, one might say, well, hold on a second. This is just a local MP. Andy Burnham's going to be Prime Minister. That's a bigger scale. I get that. However, like it's still a Labour Prime Minister. There was a general election 2 years ago. They got the most amount of votes. But Robert Jenrick and Suella Braverman, they didn't hold a by-election even though they switched parties. Now, Leila Cunningham says, well, it's because the Conservatives changed all their policies when they got in. And, people voted for Jenrick on his views. That's complete bollocks because the MP, if you're an MP for a political party, you have to toe the party line. And these weren't backbench MPs. Suella Braverman and Robert Jenrick were in government. Robert Jenrick was immigration minister for a time, and now Reform are attacking the Conservative record on immigration. So actually, to me, it's more of an outrage that Jenrick hasn't called a by-election because he was literally in government, and now Reform are angry at the policies he's made. So that's a big issue. But also, Jenrick hasn't shifted his policies. He was elected as a Conservative politician and said these things as part of the wider collective responsibility of the party. And then he switched to Reform and then switched his opinions. He's always been right-wing, but he's become very, very right-wing, moving to Reform. And to me, it's an obvious grift. He thinks this is a way of saving his seat. So I would like to see a by-election for Suella Braverman and Robert Jenrick, because, to be honest, they have completely changed parties. And again, people voted for the Conservatives, not for Suella Braverman or Robert Jenrick. They voted for the Conservatives because they voted for the Conservatives. That is the parliamentary system we have. Now, there are ways we can improve it. If you're worried like me that I wish people voted more for their MP rather than the party, then there needs to be far more accountability for MPs in the local area. But guess what? Most MPs have such a low contact rate. They're never in their constituency. I mean, Nigel Farage is holding a by-election in Clacton. He's never there. He's in America more than he is in Clacton. So there's a problem with MPs not engaging with their constituency. I would like to see that sorted out. And then we can have an argument about, there should be a by-election every single time there's a new prime minister or whatever, because people are, voting for their specific MP. But at the moment, people are just voting for the party. I mean, Nigel Farage, right? Reform are polling number one, right? There was a recent poll that had Labour ahead, actually, but consistently, Reform have polled number one. Yet Nigel Farage is deeply, deeply unpopular. He isn't as unpopular as Keir Starmer, but he has terrible personal poll ratings. So how are they doing so well in the polls? Because ultimately, even I would say it is kind of a cult personality for Reform, there's still that party element. You know, Jeremy Corbyn, apart from 2017 where he had not too bad poll ratings, his personal poll ratings weren't particularly good at times. But the vote held up. Now, of course, I'm not saying that 2019 was a success, but they had a hung parliament in 2017, got 40% of the vote, increased their vote share, increased their seats, and they got 32% of the vote in 2019. Now, both times Jeremy Corbyn got more votes than Keir Starmer, and Keir Starmer's personal poll ratings, I believe, were higher than Corbyn's before the election. I know they've gone down a bit as prime minister, but it's not. You can't just say, well, this particular politician has higher poll ratings, therefore that's the result. It's not how it works. Ultimately, party is the main thing, main thrust of politics in the country.
I do agree with a lot of what you said there, but we'll just move on to the next part of this story with Andy Burnham. So Andy Burnham has apologised for the Labour Party's handling of Gaza. A video about to play.
Let me start by saying the unbearable suffering in Gaza is a scar on our collective conscience. It's completely unacceptable that innocent Palestinians, including children, continue to be killed. That there's still a humanitarian crisis with too little aid getting in, and that the Israeli military continues to expand the area it controls in Gaza. We've got to do more to put pressure on the Israeli government. I want to repeat what I've said before about the actions of Hamas and the monstrous October the 7th terror attack, which I condemn as strongly today as I did in the immediate aftermath. I also condemn the increase in appalling anti-Semitic attacks here in the UK and those who seek to divide our communities by targeting Jewish people. Following the Heaton Park synagogue attack in Manchester, I felt firsthand the anxiety in our Jewish community and the very real threat they face. This is unacceptable, and we must continue to stamp out anti-Semitism across the UK. We must also be clear in our criticism of what has happened in Gaza. I know many people feel that at the start of Israel's military action in Gaza, my party didn't get it right, and I am sorry about that. The response has too often not been good enough. We need to do better. Yes, we have taken some important steps. These include recognising the Palestinian state, placing sanctions on Israeli ministers and imposing waves of sanctions on violent settlers and the organisations that support them. I also fully support the restrictions on arms licences to make sure that no British bombs or bullets can be used by the IDF in Gaza or in the West Bank. But let's be honest, the UK was too slow to call for a ceasefire, and we must now do more to strengthen our approach. Israel continues to violate the ceasefire agreement, killing innocent Palestinians. We're seeing a surge in settler violence in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, and the continued expansion of illegal settlements, displacing Palestinian communities. And Netanyahu's government is clearly attempting to make a two-state solution impossible. That's why we need to do more, which includes looking at further sanctions, both on those involved in the violence in Gaza, but also looking at measures to ban trade in goods with illegal settlements. I, like many people, feel passionately about Gaza, and I will do everything I can to work with international partners to stop the suffering, to ensure the Israeli government adheres to international law, and to keep the prospect of a two-state solution alive, because this is the only way to lasting peace for both Israelis and Palestinians. I have been absolutely appalled by what I've seen and read about the destruction of Gaza. There's increasing evidence that war crimes appear to have been committed. There must be accountability for the depth of the suffering the people of Gaza have experienced. Ultimately, however, it must be for the international courts to determine, rather than politicians. There is no contradiction between a zero-tolerance approach to anti-Semitism and holding the Netanyahu government to account. I will always take a fair and balanced approach and stand up for what is right.
In response, Mohsin Ali said, If you asked Andy Burnham whether Russia has committed war crimes in Ukraine, he'd say yes. But when it comes to Gaza, he hides behind the international courts because admitting that the British government knows war crimes are being committed would trigger a legal duty to immediately halt arms sales. And of course, the Zionists have come out in full force because any criticism of Israel gets labelled as anti Semitic. Julia Hartley Brewer said, by progressive voters, Labour means anti Semites, of course. The Zionist pro Israel group have come out and claimed they have concerns about Andy's remarks. We have been in touch with Andy Burnham's team to convey directly our significant concerns in relation to his remarks yesterday. We welcome his zero tolerance approach to anti Semitism, affirm his assertion that there is no contradiction between fighting anti Semitism and disagreeing with actions of the Israeli government, and share concern of the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip. However, anti Semitism cannot be confronted without addressing all its drivers. In today's Britain, this includes Islamist, far left, and far right extremists who go beyond criticism of the Israeli government to a place of hatred directed at Jews and Israelis. Odd, since Burnham condemned anti Semitism in that video and then criticised the Israeli government. So, why would the BOD have a problem with it? It's because they do think any criticism is anti Semitic. Curtis, let's go to you with your thoughts on this one.
Okay, I'm gonna speak about Andy Burnham before I go on to the Board of Deputies. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, this is a bit of progress." I mean, maybe, I guess, I suppose Keir Starmer said on LBC that Israel has a right to cut off water and electricity. Andy Burnham isn't saying that, but fuck me, that's a low bar. But ultimately, I don't see much progress here. This video basically demonstrated that Andy Burnham understands that the Labour Party have hemorrhaged lots of votes. And the number one reason why people left Labour to the Greens was over Gaza. Even I was quite shocked by that. I thought it might have been their economic policy in Gaza being important, but I thought it was going to be more their econ policy. No, Gaza is the number one thing. I'm speaking to Green Party councillors, or they were running to be councillors in local elections. They were telling me Gaza comes up on the doorstep, even if you don't bring it up. It's so important. And Andy Burnham understands that. So he's trying to bring those voters back by saying, I'm really, really sorry about this. But ultimately, it's weak source. I mean, the start of the video, he prefaces it with October 7th was horrific and anti-Semitism is really, really bad. Now, I'm not saying that October 7th was good and I endorse anti-Semitism, but I'm so fucking sick and tired when even just having the most milquetoast criticism of Israel, it's always prefaced with, oh, but by the way, anti-Semitism is bad. It's the whole sort of do you condemn Hamas again? I'm like, shit, it's been nearly 3 years since October 7th. There is an ongoing genocide. Palestinians are facing extermination. And you're still starting the video with, well, October 7th was really, really bad. Because once again, the datification of October 7th, it's still sending a message that this is still obviously much worse than what Israel's done. No, it's not. Right? I mean, it's October 7th every single fucking day for the Palestinians. So I think it's utterly weak and pathetic. You know, when me and Callum went to Makerfield, Callum asked Andy Burnham on his policy on Gaza, and I have to say, like, so proud of us at Turn Left. That clip of that video has gone viral. Owen Jones shared it. 500,000 people have seen that clip. It was featured on Al Jazeera, like mainstream media. So well done to Callum for asking that question. And he gave a really weak response. He's not going to do anything in government. Maybe he won't be as bad as Keir Starmer, but ultimately, like, what's the sliding scale of genocide? Because Andy Burnham says, well, I'm going to take a balanced approach. You can't have a balanced approach when there's a genocide. You're either for it or you're against it, okay? There's no balance here. So I find that extremely problematic by saying that. It's just weak source. Now, in terms of the BOD, they're a fucking joke. Look, we have spoken out about anti-Semitism weaponization for years on this channel. I think the first ever video we did was on it. And the Board of Deputies are fucking disgusting. They're literally saying they're concerned about Andy Burnham's statement. I mean, how is anything he said that was wrong in their point of view? Because they said, well, you know, anti-Semitism is a problem. And there's nothing wrong with criticizing Israel. Okay, well, Andy Burnham started off by saying October 7th was bad, anti-Semitism is a problem, and I'm criticizing Israel. Yet they said they were concerned because, as you pointed out, the BOD do not want you to criticize Israel, and they will call you anti-Semitic for the smallest amount of criticism because the BOD, even though they're called the Board of Deputies of British Jews, they don't represent British Jews. They represent Israel. They are a Zionist organization. So, I've said this so many times. Politicians need to fucking ignore the Zionists and the Zionist lobby because they're going to smear you regardless. And even saying something is milk toast is what Andy Burnham said, still gets a statement from the BOD. They can honestly just fuck off. They can. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the Zionists. I'm sick of the BOD. And I'm sick of their weaponization of anti-Semitism. There are genuine, really good groups, Jewish groups like JVL, Jewish Voice for Liberation, formerly Jewish Voice for Labour, and obviously they've left now, so it's Liberation. They're great because they don't pit their jewelry with genocide. They say, yeah, we're against genocide, but obviously, yeah, anti-Semitism is bad. We're a group of Jews. Naomi Wimborne Adrissi, fantastic person. She was expelled from the Labour Party. Many Jewish people, I don't need to rehash it, but many Jewish people were expelled from the Labour Party because they were not even just like anti-Zionist, they were just very, very, I don't know, they criticized Israel a little bit and that was it.
I think we're going to leave that there for tonight's stories and bring in producer Lewis, and we'll go to your comments.
Yeah, it's the wide shot.
Oh, he's not added it.
Oh, okay, give me a sec.
1 second, everybody, and then we will go to your wonderful comments and super chats. I have been keeping a little
Hello.
Oh, Lewis, you there?
I want to know if somebody could hear me on one of the scenes because I'm not sure. Is Jim Speak saying in the comments that he could hear me at some point? I'm confused. I've just come back from my fifth hydration break while I was watching. Erlen Haaland Thirst Traps.
Really? You think Haaland's a thirst trap?
No, right. So, okay, two things. There's sexiness, which is physical, right? Then there's just confidence, right? Confidence is sexy. And like his, he's got an aura. He's got an aura, okay?
Do you know what's strange? He's just suddenly come up on my algorithm. Like, he's a Man City footballer, but he has like a really active YouTube account. And I'm just thinking, how the fuck have you got time?
They hire people.
It's hard enough for us to do it. So he could be obviously he's got money.
He probably gets like $100 a week. I'm sure he can afford it. But yeah, he's just everywhere right now. By the way, the video of him doing the goal where he's like rolling over and kicking with his legs, that is in fact AI. Sorry to tell the people on the panel this because that video keeps going viral.
I've not seen the video, so...
Anyway, we will go to some lovely comments. It's been a lovely show. Obviously, yes, there's been a few little tech issues, but it's actually been very good overall.
I'm surprised. I think it's gone well for the first time. Yeah.
And the tech issue was actually a very simple mistake that now we've rectified it. It shouldn't happen again. But touch wood, because...
Don't say that.
Did someone just say in the comments it's a different Lewis? There is only one. Thank you.
Do you know what it was? There was in one of the videos, I can't even remember what it was now, but the person addressed, was there an LBC? I don't know.
Yeah, it was
and yes, it was. And she addressed a Lewis. And then somebody in the comments said it sounds like, or was I
Lewis Goodall
as well, because it sounded like she was talking to our Lewis, but actually she was talking to the other Lewis. Maybe it was that. I don't know.
But so far it's been very good. I've been watching it because when the audio issues were happening earlier, so just for people's reference, I've got my screen up. I've got a separate screen for the script to make sure all the graphics are going up at the right time, which they don't always do. Apologies for that. Got a lot of things to click, guys. Got a lot of things to click. But I'm also watching the feed on my phone because people won't know this, but I can't change graphics and see the comments at the same time because it's just the way the software is. So when people are saying no audio and I'm changing graphics, I've got no clue on my side. But anyway, just a little insight there. But we will go to the comments. I'm just going to quickly bring up this one first because a few people have asked questions about why we haven't spoken about this because it probably is the biggest story of the day. I think it's just simply because there isn't that much information. Obviously, we know that someone's been arrested. We know that it's happened, and that's pretty much all we know. So even though it probably will be worthy of a story depending on what comes out in the future and what happened, but right now all we know is that it's happened and someone's been arrested, and there's no other information. So
I mean, there's not much to say, right? If it's a murder, you can't comment if it's a murder. You can't comment on it.
Yeah.
because
we
obviously
don't want to.
someone is.
We don't want to add to any
Yeah.
potential misinformation anyway, so it's probably best to kind of see what comes out of it, and then we can speak on it when we've got a little bit more information. But it's still so fresh, isn't it?
Yes, but onto the slightly more positive stuff. Obviously, everyone's happy with the lovely 40k subs.
I think we're 40,001 now. Because what really worries me is when we get to 40,000 and someone unsubs. That's happened before. We hit the milestone. Yes, and then someone unsubs. You're like, why did you do this? So
Deus Ex gave us a lovely £10
Thank
instead.
you.
40k dono. Congrats. We got a lovely £5 off of Autumn and said, can't catch the show tonight. I'm watching the footy. Take some cash as my penance. Thank you so much, Autumn. I know you're not here for it. Well, who's playing
I
tonight?
appreciate it anyway.
Who is it? Everyone's like looking blankly, like, come on. You can't expect me to know.
I tell you what, when England play tomorrow, Spain.
Yes, we will be in Spain.
Rachel donated $2.
Is that us out on each other now? I mean, I think people guess, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's basically the Crystal and Carl show, if you think about it. People will understand that reference. There's no point hiding it now, is it?
Regular Rachel donated $2 and said that the past tense of cast is cast, not casted. And I appreciate these types of comments because I like accuracy, and feel free to correct me anytime. Somebody commented on one of my videos earlier when I was talking about Farage, and they thought I was making a pun about bin, and obviously they're about like, you know, the Clacton election, and I was like, no, it's just like I was saying he's been investigated, and I was like, that's just my accent. I'm not trying to make any puns.
Oh, he's been investigated.
And I was like, no, it's just my accent. We also have lots of memberships today. Jim Speak gifted one. Thank you very much, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Jim's been very active in the comments today, doing lots of references to. Oh, what was it? Was it a game? I'm sorry, Jim. I saw the comment earlier on, but he's been making lots and lots of comments. I've started a few of them. He'll tell me again in the comments below.
Because you're a bit of a nerd, Lewis, aren't you?
I am a nerd. Yeah, I'm a big nerd. Idiosyncrasy gifted one membership, so thank you very much. Dahlia became a member. Thank you very much, Dahlia Haynes. And we also had one gifted from Dominique Jones, 8634. Thank you very much. And Antifa Vegan Boy, one of my favorite names, gifted 10 turn left membership. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Let's go back to the starred comments. So obviously, as I brought that one up earlier, lots of comments around 40k celebration in true TL fashion. Let me just scroll down to one because I saw one in relation which was just bloody hilarious. Where is it? Here we go. From Deus Ex. Better get a desk 10 times the size when you hit 400k.
We will. The day we hit 400k, we will have a proper full-time studio, and it will be massive, right? You know, I think it will be. But
does it need to be? Does it need to be?
But I have to say though, hitting 40,000 subscribers when we've unveiled the studio upgrade is pretty cool. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that is a good achievement. But then I feel like it was overshadowed because they couldn't hear us at the start. But it's fine. Like next time we do a show together, which is not next week, the week after, that was the first one.
Feel good.
Yeah, I don't know if
feel good.
Yeah, I know people can just ignore what happened today, but yeah.
We'll get there. But it's been a great show. By the way, actually, I'll come to that in one second. I want to put this first. Jim Speaker, remember to like or GTFO, get the fuck out. I agree, Jim. I agree.
Like for the table. Give a like for the turn left table, at least.
And Jim has also reminded people that you can join our lovely Discord. If you're on YouTube or on like your phone or your iPad, it should be a clickable link. But you can also join by just following this link as well, which I'll put up again a little bit later on. And more comments on the desk, Curtis. More comments on the desk. People are loving the desk.
Yay. I don't know if anyone would have heard because it might have been when the sound wasn't working, but I actually put the sign and the red strips up. That was my contribution. So Curtis's vision and my execution.
The logo's wonky though.
No, it's not.
It might be too. I don't know.
Oh, I realized I pronounced the name Dahlia earlier. It's Dalian, isn't it? Dalian Haynes. And then in response to Dalian, Dominique put one of us. And lastly on the setup, the new setup is sharp as fuck. Because I was saying to Curtis before the show, like on my screen, it looks like a bit more kind of like not pixely. What was the word I used? Grainy. But actually, when I'm looking on my phone, it looks so smooth and beautiful. I think it's just because we're seeing like the preview version. But actually, on my phone, it looks amazing. It looks smooth and it looks great. So,
Do you
good
want to
job.
say? Do you want to say to the viewers what you said? Like when the shot was on me, what did you say?
Oh wait, let me go back to it.
You
Really
want-
quickly.
Like the
The
ITV2,
ITV2.
like the discussion after the show, it didn't help that I'm wearing like the
Yeah.
t-shirt, which is the exact same color of the uniform. So
You do look like you could go and do a bush tucker trial right now.
yeah, gonna eat some kangaroo testicle.
Don't
I
mind.
could not do that.
I just wanted to bring this up, even though we didn't talk about it, just because I wanted to mention it, because multiple people have talked about our favorite dustbin, Count Binface.
Mhm.
There was a poll that was released. I think I shared it in the group about an hour before the show, which it
Yes.
came from Ipsos, but Navarra posted it. It's only a small one, but Count Binface is currently the favorite to win.
I mean, not to be a pooper or anything. It's a nationwide poll, not a constituency poll. Obviously,
Yeah.
a constituency is going to be like 90% charge, but still very, very funny. Still very funny. Imagine if you won though. Fuck me. Imagine if just Can't Be Face won. That is the best timeline you could possibly live in.
But what is interesting, even though it's a nationwide poll, is that I think it was like 22% for Farage. And when the party's been polling, anything from like 25 to 30, kind of within that range for the better part of like a year or so. And the fact that it's down at 22, I think is still very telling. But anyway.
But then it'll be like Andy Burnham being matched up with like a reform person, and they might be quite close. But then when it comes to Makerfields, Andy Burnham blew out the wall.
We also might get a triple as well, because we've got hopefully maybe Farage going down. We've got Tommy in court, I think in October, Tommy Robinson, for his like stalking a journalist type thing. And then also just after that, then you've got the midterms in the US, and then Trump could get loads of his power taken away from him. So could be a good year, guys. Could be a good year. We'll see. But the last comment on non-relation stuff to the show, which is just Benji reminding everybody here, hey, everyone, remember to show some love on Twitch, beautiful people. There we go. There's some love for Twitch. Thank you to our Twitch viewers. Okay, on to the story. As Terry likes to point out, Tom Holland is British. They didn't really care about that, do they? Where's all the Greek actors?
I thought that earlier.
Well, we were saying about this, but
also
the accent,
but also they're all like big A-list celebrities in it.
iPhone face film, isn't it?
Yes, potentially a bit of iPhone face, because oh god, who did I say was in it? Oh,
Zendaya.
no.
Holland,
Never mind.
Robert
But anyway,
Pattinson, that's not
an iPhone face. But anyway,
it
is. I almost feel that part of him doing it is just to get all these like big names in it, just like draw the crowd, and then just to have it
Nolan
be this
doesn't need to do that.
humongous,
And
like,
I find that
epic.
quite surprising, because Nolan doesn't need to do that. Like, he's a celebrity in himself. But what he likes to do though is always return, like, keep the same character, like, actors he's worked with.
Yeah.
Like, he's worked with Matt Damon, he's worked with Anne Hathaway, he's worked with Robert Pattinson. So he just kind of does that a lot.
Also, where's that comment gone? Because I wanted to bring it up for the gays and the theys. I started so many comments today. The comments were just so continuously funny today. Here we go.
When you've got go on.
Curtis knows reading is what? Fundamental. See, Curtis hasn't got a clue because he spends too much time on Twitter.
Straight over his head. No idea.
He has no idea what we're talking about, and let's not explain it to him.
No,
I don't want to know.
He doesn't deserve to know.
I don't want to know. Okay, stay on Twitter, and that's it. You can deal with the other social medias.
But back onto the story. Jesus wasn't white. Yet they don't get outraged at that.
Well,
no.
There
you go.
Well, I was going to say, because as what we were speaking about earlier, is when you have these weird fascists who are like, it's whitewashing Western culture. What they mean is white, don't they? That's their, like, they're replacing the word white with Western, because if they're not kicking off about like Americans in the film. Yet America is a very, very young country. So there would be no Americans during the time of the Odyssey. But they're not kicking off about that because America is part of the West. It's seen as a white country. But that's fine. That's not whitewashing Western history with a country that's only 250 years old, but suddenly imported to the time. But as soon as like a person of color's in it. So that's what they mean. When they say Western culture, it just means white.
But obviously, whenever they do cast Jesus as if they try to cast Jesus as a non-white person or anything, then they do kick off. Yeah,
because they're little snowflakes.
They are. Forget Helen of Troy. We want more Helena of YouTube.
True. We do, don't we?
That's a good one.
That is a very good one.
I'm going to have to send her that a little bit later on. Moving on to what we were discussing later on, talking about X. I haven't used X in a few years. I must delete my account. The reason I actually chose this is because I get so conflicted. Curtis is addicted to fighting with people on X, but also it's annoyingly but weirdly a very good journalistic platform. And
it really is.
And this is what's frustrating because it's who it's owned by, because there's no other tool out there that can currently match it. And the one thing that I can say to people right now with absolute 100% certainty, the only reason Nigel Farage is getting taken down right now is because of a select few hobbyist investigators who have spent the better part of the last year digging out everything. What the Times has presented over the last few days, the Guardian stuff is actually all their own work. And I'm not taking credit away from the Times because they have done all the legwork. People have just found the foundations, but all the stories that are coming out are because of the foundations built by a small group of hobbyist Twitter users who have just posted everything continuously and connected it all together through Twitter feeds. And that is the reason why Nigel Farage is being taken down right now.
That is why I still think Twitter is the best platform. It's obviously far worse than when it was under Jack Dorsey, and it's a horrible, it's got horrible users on it. And I'm not like begrudging anyone who wants to delete Twitter, but it is the best platform, I think, when it comes to like the journalism. I think it's really important. So I do agree with you on that.
Yeah, and I'm just going to give a plug to one particular person who's been crucial to all of this. Go and follow Finance Guy, because he is the one who's got the most accurate dirt on everything that's coming out right now. And some of the stuff that's come out now, he posted it literally a year ago, and he started already digging into this. But anyway, I started too many Count Ben Face comments. Just because we need to keep the comments short because I don't want to run out of time, I am going to move on to the Andy story as well. No genocide, Andy. This is just both sides waffle. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think Mothinali was bang on when he said that, look, if you're going to talk about Ukraine, not just Andy Burnham, but establishment politics, they will happily call it out. They'll call out the crimes, and they'll accurately reflect what's happening. But when it comes to Israel, the most amount of criticism you can get is, it is a bit worrying that, ethnically cleansing Palestinians. So, we're going to have to we'll have to talk to the Israeli government and see what we can do. We're not going to stop sending arms and,
They won't use that term.
They will never use the term. No, of course not. They will not use the term genocide. They absolutely will not.
What's the most frustrating is that, people like ourselves can say it's genocide because we believe it is, and there is facts obviously leading towards that, multiple reports, everything. But even if you wanted to go for the approach of leave it up to the courts, which is actually a fair statement in terms of the final determination, however, you can still talk about the credible allegations of genocide, the credible allegations and evidence around apartheid, ethnic cleansing. You can still talk about these, but he still skirts around them, and they can't deny there are overwhelming credible allegations of each of these things. And it's just point,
But on that point, though, and I know you're not saying this, and you would probably agree with me. Those that say, "Oh, it's not been proven yet," technically, they are just deferring. They just don't want to admit it, so they're just trying to appeal to that. But not a single BBC journalist. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. When someone goes on the BBC and say, "Oh, it's a genocide," Zach Plansky goes on the BBC says it's a genocide, and then you always get a BBC journalist say, "Well, it's not technically been proven yet," and Israel would say this. But what's stopping them saying, however, though, all right, it's not been technically proven, but the ICC and the ICJ have issued arrest warrants, and that there is plausible genocide. That is what the South African case said, which is there is actually plausible genocide going on there. So it's funny how they don't mention that point. So even if they were, and if the BBC says they're trying to be unbiased and they can't say genocide, why can't they bring up those other points? Why can't they say, okay, we're not going to say it's a genocide. However, they have said this. South Africa brought evidence, and the ICJ has said there is plausible genocide though, but they won't do it because ultimately the BBC is the arm of the establishment, and they will protect Israel. Like Rafa Berg is the Middle East editor. Obviously has a lot of influence. He's a massive Zionist. And like he tried suing Owen Jones because Owen Jones did a piece on Dropsite about Rafi Berg. And he tried suing him. It wasn't successful. So it's a way of escaping any kind of accountability. And that's what Andy Burnham's doing. Like the Labour Party will never call this a genocide.
I do agree. I think it was both sides waffle, and even as it was playing, I thought, A, he sounded quite robotic, and B, I didn't even turn to and I said, Christ, this is long.
Yeah.
Like waffling on and just repeating the same thing kind of
it's
again
not going
and
to convince
again.
anyone, is it?
No.
And just a reminder, obviously it wasn't, under Andy Burnham. He wasn't even an MP at the time, but it was, I think, 2021 when most of the Labour Party voted that, genocide was plausible in Xinjiang against the Uyghurs by the state of China under their government.
Exactly.
And people voted on that. You can make these decisions based off as evidence, not as an adjudicator, but you are a legislator who has that ability.
Yeah.
And as MK points out as well, okay, here we go. Here we go. Criticism, but no action. And this is not me complimenting Starmer in any way, but at least eventually he took action. He shouldn't get any credit for it. I'm just saying he took action, and he even did. Obviously, when it came to here's a deadline, and if you don't meet this deadline, Israel, here's what they're going to do, and he did it. He recognized the Palestinian state, and he's promising nothing extra. So where's he going to go with this? He's promising no action.
I suppose he can't go anywhere with it because for Keir Starmer, recognising the Palestinian state doesn't mean that much in the grand scheme of things. Because, like, ultimately, the biggest policy decisions and changes that we want to see is not obviously we want everyone to recognise the Palestinian state. But to me, I don't really care if Starmer says that or not. What I want him to do, not going to do now, and what Andy Burnham won't do, is to completely cut off all forms of arms to Israel, to stop the actual complicity in it. And to call them out and say, look, we are not going to provide any kind of intelligence. We're not going to give you any money. We're not going to send you weapons. And Israel is committing a genocide. They could even go as far as saying, look, we're actually going to expel diplomats from the country until you fucking sort your shit out. They could. There's something tangible there. So with Starmer, I mean, I won't give him any credit because that's just a statement. Okay, I've recognized the Palestinian state. That is so far behind. Like, it's nothing. It's not progress. It's not new to say that. So I think that he was probably, proud of himself to do that. But tangibly, what did that do? Did that save a single Palestinian life? No, it didn't. And I get it. Of course, the UK in our position can't stop the genocide, but we certainly can implement measures that could really, I think, could draw back the relentless bombardment of the Palestinians. We should be sanctioning these people to fuck. And I know that sometimes a lot of people argue against sanctions because ultimately they fall on the average person, which is why I am a bit skeptical of sanctions, right? Like on a government level. But when it comes to Israeli society, they're all for the genocide. So I want Israeli society to feel the effects of the sanctions because they're all fucking complicit. But none of that's going to happen.
I was going to bring this comment up, but just to clarify, I wasn't like advocating for anything Starmer did. I was just saying it like
I know you weren't.
At least he eventually did something, regardless of he shouldn't get any credit for it. Whatever, it was all too late, as we know. It's just a case of you would think that if he's trying to placate to the left of the party, as people would say, or the people who don't like seeing children and humans just being mass murdered, you'd think he'd at least try and offer the appearance of taking action. You know what I mean? At least something. Whereas he's not said anything that's not new, essentially. But I'll bring this up as the last comment. Plus, there's an obligation. Sorry, Emma said. Plus, there's an obligation to prevent a genocide, which is true as it's happening, which kind of requires taking a stance before waiting for courts to adjudicate after the fact. Emma is correct. This is how the law was written, and this is why they did it in such a way because you can't just wait until it's finished because then it's over and it's done.
No, I completely agree. It's not just about calling it out; it's like to try and actually prevent it. But of course, UK This government is just dripped
It's
in the
not-
blood of the Palestinians.
Yeah, but it's not just us, is it?
It's not just us, of course not. No,
all around the world.
it is
It's
all around the
actually
world.
very, very concerning because you always hear never again, ever again.
Oh yeah.
Um,
But that's the thing, and actually, I've been watching Curb Your Enthusiasm, right? And Larry David's Jewish, and there's a lot of Jewish, there's a big Jewish community in it. And I think it's a clip from Curb Your Enthusiasm where someone says "Oh, never again," but it's happening again. And then some guy goes, "No, we meant never again for Jews." And obviously it was a joke, but it's true. When people say never again, when Zionist organizations say never again, they literally mean, "Oh no, never again for Jews." But genocide is not based on someone's, the act of genocide is based on someone's ethnic base. But you shouldn't be calling out genocide only when it's a group of people or one group of people. It's a genocide regardless. But that is, I genuinely, I think that's what they think. They think never again, as in just for Jews. And then some of these people are such cranks that they seem to think that October 7th was a genocide. Well, I mean, official figures say it's 1,300 people died. Definitely more like 700. But what no one speaks about is the Hannibal Directive, in which Israel literally killed their own on the 7th of October. But no one says anything about that.
Pretty much. We could talk about this definitely for hours, as we have been doing for years now. But just a reminder, there is an election in October in Israel, and even though we won't see a massive change for who's probably going to get into power, I will be happier if Netanyahu is no longer in power. But we will see. But lastly, I'll finish on this actually because I missed this. I went back to the top. Michael said that he did actually gift 5 memberships. For some reason, it hasn't shown up. So I just wanted to make sure that we highlighted that. So thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you.
I will love you and leave you guys. I hope everybody has a lovely weekend. Who's watching the match tomorrow? Is it tomorrow?
Absolutely.
Is it tomorrow? Is it tonight?
Night, yeah. In the
It's
pub
tomorrow.
for me.
In pub.
In pub.
Aren't you?
Yeah.
Aren't you going somewhere at some point?
Yeah, Spain tomorrow. But there's pubs
I
in Spain.
didn't want to say.
Lewis?
I didn't want to say it specifically. You know what I mean?
Oh, because
exactly when you
some
travel.
people are going to try and find us in Spain.
What's your flight
Where
number?
are we gonna be?
What's the flight number? I don't know actually. I couldn't even tell you.
Oh my
So
God,
you'll be
we've got
there in time to
Passenger
watch the match.
Princess.
Sorry.
Yeah, we will.
Okay, perfect. That's what I was getting at. But we're up against Haaland, so I'm gonna have to vote for him. Is that how it works? Voting? Yeah.
Support.
Sorry, I'm in love with Haaland.
Call yourself a patriot.
He was
I
born
can't
in
wait to
Leeds.
see the
He is. I'm
Norwegian
from
road that
Leeds.
they
He was
keep
born
doing.
there.
Oh, really?
Huh?
I said I am a patriot because he was born in Leeds, even though he plays for Norway.
Yeah, but you're not supporting England.
I'm supporting Haaland. He's from England. He was born here.
Call yourself a bloody patriot.
Anyway, love you and leave you all. Have a lovely
Lewis.
weekend. Have a good holiday, and I will go back to the split.
Thank you. Get the comment out.
Oh my word.
It's fine. Thank
There
you
you
to Okay. Thank you to everyone who tuned in this evening. It's been a really great show and it's been nice to kind of have a bit more back and forth.
Oh,
and stuff.
it's so much better, isn't it? Like you do have a more back and forth. It's a bit awkward when it's like down the line or other
When
side
we
of
were
the
in
room.
two-
Like the
separate
last time
sides
we
of
did
the
it,
room,
we were
yeah.
in technically the same studio, but yeah.
Mhm.
Hot under the lights though, I tell
I
you that. We
literally
didn't
I'm
bring
so
we didn't
raw.
bring the fan downstairs.
I know. Just a heads up that for the next few weeks, it might look a little bit different, as we have got a few members on holiday ourselves and some of the others as well. So there might be a few more interviews going out in lieu of a live show, but we will endeavor to bring you content at 7:30 p.m. on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday as normal. You have been watching Normal Island Live. Have a lovely weekend, and I'll see you next time.